joining us today. I'm Donna, the host of Dead to Rights, the podcast, and I'm here today on behalf of the Mesdames of Mayhem to speak with my friend Cheryl Freedman. And Cheryl is a 25-year veteran of the Canadian crime writing scene and a longtime freelance editor of crime fiction, Jewish mysticism, memoirs, academic papers, and more. She was the first executive director of Crime Writers of Canada and the occasional chair of Bloody Words Mystery Conference and the Bony Blithe Light Mystery Award. She takes the occasional stab at writing mysteries, and thank God she does, that reflect her interest in ballads and folk songs and cross-cultural folklore, mythology, and ferrets. And I love the ferrets, and I've been telling Cheryl for years, take more than a stab at writing because we love your writing. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for joining us today. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you. We're going to talk about your story today. Cheryl's got a story by the title of Possessed, which will appear in the Spirit of 13, which is coming out from the Mesdames of Mayhem in the fall of 2020. And your character, Sarah Levine, runs into a rather tricky problem. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sarah is, I'm not sure exactly what Sarah is, but she's sort of me about, I don't know, at about a third of my current age. And she's working on something to deadline on her computer, and suddenly, boom, she gets the blue screen of death. I actually originally wrote the story in 1995, well, the bones of the story in 1995 for a science fiction and fantasy writing course. And back then, the technology was completely different. It turns out a Dybbuk has possessed her computer. A Dybbuk is a Jewish folklore character. A Dybbuk can either be a demon, which is less likely, or a soul who has committed some sort of religious type crime in his or her previous life and has to come back and atone for it. And the soul can't get into Sarah, so he possesses the computer instead.
Okay, and then I think you've also got a ferret featured by the name of Trouble, which I love. And if anybody knows Cheryl out there, you know about her passion for ferrets. Tell us about Trouble and what happens to Trouble without giving too much of the story away.
Well, Sarah essentially tells the Dybbuk to get out of the computer, and the Dybbuk does and possesses Trouble. And there's this little ferret, and it's squeaking in Yiddish. Because the Dybbuk, it turns out that the Dybbuk has actually chosen Sarah to possess, or not possess as the case may be, because he used to live in the flat that she is currently living in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what year did he live there?
He died in 1937. So I think he lived there from 32 to 37. I think he got married in 1932, and he and his wife moved there. It's in Kensington Market, which when I first moved here, it moved to Toronto in 72. Kensington Market was still very, very Jewish. When I got here in 87, it was still fairly Jewish, but almost all the Jewish elements have moved out of Kensington Market now. Mm-hmm. But it was the core of Jewish immigration. It was basically a Jewish ghetto.
Yes. Well, it was a Jewish heartland when I was going there, which was, I'll date myself here, but it was long, long ago. We used to ride our bikes to Kensington Market every weekend, and pick up as many fresh deli things and cheeses and things like that as we could. Anybody who's familiar with Toronto will have heard of Kensington Market at the very least,
Yeah. And you had Shopsies and you had Switzers.
Yes.
And then it was a bagel place on College, and I can't remember the name of it. And it actually closed comparatively recently, or maybe about 15 years ago, which is pretty recent for Kensington Market.
Right, right. So Sarah has an apartment in the Kensington area. This is what you're telling me. And it is
Right.
inhabited by a Jewish spirit from Jewish mythology. And what is the Divot's name?
The Divot's name is Shlomo Finkel.
Okay. I could never have said that. That's why I threw it to you. Shlomo Finkel, is that right?
Finkel. Yeah, Shlomo is basically a shortened version for Solomon.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. I'm learning something here. So you're gonna have to read the story. The thing that strikes me about this story is it brings you've got a way of saying something funny without saying something funny. And it's the kind of one-liners that just grab you. There's a couple of things here, like Trouble was a notoriously poor conversationalist, while Trouble is the ferret, so one would hope. And I just roared when I read that. And it's just so typical of your writing. I love the way you slip those things in. It's like you're not really writing a comedy. It's lighthearted, but it's not really a comedy. And yet it will have these moments of just outright laughter, just laugh out loud moments that I just love. And you do that over and over. So
Thank
I
you.
really welcome. So if you haven't read anything by Cheryl Freedman, please get your hands on something. Cheryl's had stories that have appeared in a number of places. And yeah, I'm glad to see the CWC broadening a bit though, because sometimes their categories are just too narrow, and everybody is broadening their minds about these things, about genres. I mean, I see articles about genre all over the place, everybody's broadening their minds about this. And I think that the establishment needs to broaden in keeping with what people are writing.
Exactly. And with this new award with CWC, I'm really, really happy to see my friend Vicki Delaney has been shortlisted for an award. I'm sorry, I keep thinking of them as the Arthur Ellis Awards. They will always be the Arthur Ellis Awards. Yeah, and Arthur, this will always be, and it's
yes,
it's the original award, and it will.
Yeah.
To me, that will always be the award.
I know.
But she wouldn't have stood a chance because she writes cozies, and she would not have stood a chance under Best Novel. And now she does. And now all sorts of people who write light books stand a chance.
Yes.
And I think that's great. And
yes,
that's
and we have a lot of friends who fit that category. Vicky's an excellent example, but there's a number of them that you and I know who fit that category. The other thing that Cheryl is well known for is she is a Toronto-based editor of crime fiction. And Cheryl works in a freelance basis. Tell us about that, Cheryl. How can people reach you if they want to talk to you about editing? Is it mostly word of mouth or?
I've actually had 3 people contact me relatively recently because of my CWC member page, because I should have a website. I cover my nose in shame.
I bet you get plenty of work.
And I'm semi-retired now anyway.
Okay. So I shouldn't pump you too hard on that.
And I want to get my book written finally.
Yes. Well, that's the whole point of semi-retirement, isn't it? To be able to get your book written and get it out there. And do you have a working title for it?
Not yet. But what's interesting about it was as you know, because we've been friends for a very, very, very long time. We've been in the same writing groups at the time. I've gone through a lot of ideas. I was working on a mystery based on a ballad, Lady Isabel and the Elf Knight, and I actually got quite far on that. And you helped me a lot with that, with how a young Catholic noblewoman of the 12th century would react to certain things.
Because I have a close connection to young Catholic medieval women. Oh my goodness.
I had her doing something really bad, and you said, no, she wouldn't do that. And this is why she wouldn't do that. And then I was working on a fairy tale mystery, and that did involve a ferret, a walking, talking ferret who spoke 40 slang and wore a
Oh,
little
I love it.
fedora.
I love it.
And the third idea that I was working on was based on King Solomon when he came to power, because Solomon's Jerusalem, well, Solomon's Israel, was rife with trouble. It was, and I tried and tried and tried to make it work, and it just wouldn't work. And none of these ideas felt right for me. And then when the writing group said, why don't you bring back Shlomo Finkel? And suddenly I wanted to write. Suddenly I felt what all of my author friends say, that
Yes,
you
that
write
energy.
because you have.
Yes,
Yep.
that energy comes coursing through, and you have. But you and I have talked about this a number of times over the years. Sometimes the idea comes, and sometimes the idea is perfect. But if it can't maintain itself, you have to know when to walk away and get on to the next idea. Otherwise, you're just you're clinging to this idea, and you're not actually productive.
Because it just doesn't resonate with you.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't have the staying power.
And they do. Yeah.
Right.
But writing is really difficult. Sarah Souls, kids like that. She can just sit down and bang out a chapter a day on her books.
There have been times when I've been able to do that, but they're not long term. They're when that energy really is moving with the idea, and you're really there. Anyway, Cheryl, it's great to see you. It's great to have you on. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, and I do too. So thank you, and looking forward to the launch.
Yes, same here. Same here. Hopefully in person. We're going to see.
Dusty road, a man alone. His vital signs go on hold, and I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides, let it ride.